Crank up the volume and brace yourself, because CallMeHoly is back, and this time, we're smashing through levels like a wrecking ball on a sugar rush. Welcome to the ultimate power leveling masterclass, where we take a noob and rocket them to level 50 in under 45 minutes. You heard that right? Strap in, it's going to be a wild ride. Right out of the gate, we're diving into the treasure trove of Razador chests. Think you need luck? Screw that. We're cracking open 6 to 8 of these bad boys, and bam! You're hitting level 20 to 21 faster than you can say experience boost. This isn't just leveling, it's warp speed evolution. But wait, there's a twist. Today's episode is laced with a new haunting narrative that'll chill your bones while you blaze through those levels. It's not just about the grind, it's about the grind with a side of goosebumps. Trash those HP potions, folks. We ain't shedding a single hit point today. Now, let's talk gear. Fire resistance gear, to be exact. You're suiting up with at least 90% fire resistance, though we're gunning for the full 100%. Why? Because we're not just playing the game, we're setting the rules. This gear is your ticket to walking through flames like they're a spring breeze. Gear up with your body force loadout, and let's get that aura of sword skill glowing. We're diving into spider territory with zero fear and full swagger. Next up, the journey to Spider's Dungeon V2 and then V3. This isn't a stroll in the park, it's a tactical march to victory. And guess what? That bonus experience is cranked up to 150%. Lollipop? Heroes medal? Toss them aside. They're dead weight where we're going. This trip to level 50 is all about raw skill and maybe just a tad of insanity. Stay tuned, stay aggressive, and let's turn the heat up on this power leveling furnace. Given the epic length of this video, I'm spicing things up with a twist. I'll be weaving in my very own spine-chilling tales to keep you on the edge of your seat. So grab your blankets and get cozy, because it's story time, my friends. Whispers from the shadowed woods. In the serene suburban sprawl that skirted the dense, whispering forests, there lived a man in the prime of his late 30s. His name was Daniel, a construction worker by trade, whose hands, rough and calloused, spoke of years laboring under the sun. Despite the physical toll, Daniel found a simple joy in his work, a satisfaction in seeing structures rise from nothing, a testament to human ingenuity and effort. His days stretched long, usually 10 hours, leaving his skin kissed by the elements and his body weary, yet his spirit remained unbroken. Daniel shared his life with Anna, his wife of over a decade. She was the quiet sort, with a strength that belied her gentle appearance. Her days were filled with the hum of domestic life and the pursuit of her passion for painting, a talent that adorned the walls of their home with vibrant colors and dreamy landscapes. Together, they navigated the complexities of life, finding solace in their shared love and understanding. Their son, Lucas, was a bright-eyed boy of 9 whose imagination knew no bounds. He was the heartbeat of their home, filling it with laughter and endless chatter about his adventures, both real and conjured from the depths of his creative mind. Lucas found his playground in the sprawling backyard that edged into the forest, a boundary between the known and the mysteries that lay beyond. Their house, a modest 2-story affair, stood as a beacon of warmth and comfort in the residential area. It was painted a soft shade of blue, with white trimmings that gleamed under the sun, and a front porch that welcomed neighbors and friends alike. The garden was a labor of love, with flower beds bursting with colors, and a small vegetable patch that provided them with fresh produce. The forest loomed at the periphery, a vast expanse of towering trees and dense underbrush that whispered secrets on the wind. The proximity to the forest lent their home a sense of isolation, a peaceful solitude that was both comforting and eerie. As the day gave way to night, the sounds of the forest grew louder, a symphony of nocturnal life that was both fascinating and unnerving. Shadows danced between the trees, and the wind carried whispers that seemed almost human. Daniel and his family lived a life of simple joys and modest dreams, but beneath the surface of their idyllic existence, a sense of unease began to brew. It was in the way the shadows seemed to linger a moment too long, in the inexplicable chills that swept through the house on still nights, and in the way Lucas's stories began to take a darker turn, tales of shadowy figures that watched from the depths of the woods. As autumn approached, bringing with it a chill that seeped into bones and a blanket of fog that clung to the ground in the mornings, the atmosphere around their home grew thicker, heavier with unspoken fears. It was as if the forest itself was closing in, becoming a looming presence that watched, waited, and whispered secrets meant to be left undiscovered. The stage was set, the players unknowingly cast, and the story of Daniel and his family was about to take a turn into the shadows that bordered their world. The tranquility of their life was but the calm before the storm, a prelude to a tale of intrigue and terror that would unravel in the heart of the forest that stood watch over their home. One crisp afternoon, as the sun dappled through the leaves, casting shadows that danced on the ground, a subtle shift permeated the air around Lucas. The laughter of his friends faded into the background as a prickling sensation crept up his spine. The forest, usually a backdrop to their play, seemed to lean in closer, its usual whispers turning into murmurs that felt directed, intentional. Lucas, caught in the grip of an inexplicable feeling, stopped in his tracks, his gaze drawn to the threshold where the backyard met the wild. "Lucas, what's up? You look like you've seen a ghost," one of his friends called out, breaking the spell that held him. Shaking his head, Lucas tried to dispel the unease that had settled over him. "It's nothing," he muttered, forcing a smile. "Just thought I saw something in the woods." His friends, following his gaze, found nothing but the familiar tangle of trees and shadows. "There's nothing there, dude. Come on. Let's go explore the castle," they urged, their imaginations already leaping to the next adventure. Lucas let himself be swept away by their enthusiasm, but the feeling of being watched lingered, an invisible weight that clung to him long after they had moved on. It was as if the forest itself had fixed its gaze upon him, marking him with an attention that was neither friendly nor benign. As the days passed, the incident in the backyard evolved from a fleeting moment of fear to a constant undercurrent of dread. Lucas found himself drawn to the window, his eyes searching the forest's edge for a sign of the watcher. Morning greeted him with a view of the woods bathed in light, yet he could not shake the feeling of eyes upon him. Nightfall brought shadows that crept closer to his home, and Lucas would peer into the darkness, searching for the source of his unease before he could surrender to sleep. He confided in his mother, his voice tinged with the seriousness that children reserve for their deepest fears. "Mom, I feel like something is watching me from the forest. It's always there, just out of sight." Anna, ever the pragmatist, brushed off his concerns with a gentle smile. "Lucas, darling, it's just your imagination running wild. The forest is full of animals. Maybe you felt the eyes of a curious deer. There's nothing out there that can harm you." But Lucas knew it wasn't just his imagination. The feeling of being watched had imprinted itself on his mind, a constant reminder that something unseen had taken an interest in him. Despite his mother's reassurances, the boy could not escape the gaze that seemed to follow him, invisible yet palpable, a presence that lurked at the edge of his perception. As each day folded into the next, Lucas's childhood kingdom, once a source of joy and adventure, became a landscape shadowed by fear. The forest, with its secrets and whispers, had cast a spell over him, transforming the once familiar backdrop of his play into a stage for an unseen observer. The boundary between his world and the unknown had blurred, leaving Lucas standing on the precipice of a mystery that beckoned with a chilling allure. The change in Lucas was palpable, a shift from the exuberance of youth to a quietude that seemed foreign to his nature. Daniel watched, his heart heavy, as the spark in his son's eyes dimmed, replaced by a wariness that no child should bear. The laughter that once filled their home now echoed hollow, a reminder of the joy that had been clouded by an unseen fear. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Daniel sat beside Lucas, his presence a silent offer of comfort. "Lucas," he began, his voice soft, I've noticed you've been a bit down lately. Is there anything you want to talk about? Lucas hesitated, the weight of his fears pressing against his chest. With a sigh, he shared the unsettling feeling of being watched, a confession that tumbled out in a rush of words, each one laden with the burden of his anxiety. He spoke of his mother's disbelief, how her rational explanations did little to ease the dread that clung to him. Daniel listened, his heart aching for his son. In a bid to dispel the shadows that had taken residence in Lucas's world, he proposed a solution, a father-son adventure into the heart of the forest. "Tomorrow, we'll explore the woods together," Daniel assured him, a determined glint in his eye. "We'll prove that there's nothing there, just you, me, and the great outdoors." The next morning dawned clear and crisp, the air filled with the promise of adventure. Lucas's apprehension mingled with a flicker of excitement as they stood at the edge of the forest, the unknown stretching out before them. With Daniel leading the way, they ventured into the woods, the natural world awakening around them in a chorus of sounds and movement. As they delved deeper, the forest seemed to envelop them, its towering trees and dappled sunlight creating a realm removed from the worries that had plagued Lucas. It was during one such moment of awe, as they marveled at the beauty of the woods, that a deer, its coat a blend of browns and whites, emerged from the thicket. It looked directly at Lucas, its gaze penetrating, before it turned and darted away. Lucas, caught up in the moment, a spark of his old self igniting within, gave chase. "Wait," he called out, his legs carrying him faster than Daniel anticipated. "Come back!" Daniel, caught off guard, stumbled after his son, his voice booming through the trees. "Lucas, stop!" But the forest swallowed his words, just as it seemed to swallow Lucas, the distance between them growing with each passing second. Panic set in as Daniel realized he could no longer see Lucas. The dense foliage and uneven terrain hindered his pursuit, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he called out his son's name, each shout more desperate than the last. The realization that he had lost Lucas, in a forest that suddenly felt menacing and alive with unseen dangers, was a blow that knocked the air from his lungs. Daniel's agony was a tangible thing, a vortex of fear and self-reproach that threatened to consume him. How could he have let this happen? The very adventure meant to dispel Lucas's fears had now plunged them into a nightmare beyond anything he could have imagined. The forest, once a place of natural beauty, now mocked him with its silence and secrets, a labyrinth that held his son captive. He pushed on, the underbrush clawing at his clothes, his mind racing with scenarios of what might befall Lucas in the depths of the woods. Each minute that passed was a minute too long. The distance between them, an ever-widening chasm filled with Daniel's echoing calls for his son. In that moment, Daniel understood the true nature of fear. It was not the shadows in the forest or the unseen watchers. It was the realization that he might not find his son, that Lucas's laughter might never again fill their home. The agony of that thought spurred him on, a desperate father clinging to the hope that he would once again hold his son, safe and unharmed, away from the whispering woods that had claimed him. The forest, with its dense canopy and sprawling underbrush, transformed under the weight of Daniel's desperation. Every shadow seemed to hide potential dangers, every rustle of leaves a whisper of what might have happened to Lucas. The footmarks, small and unmistakable as his son's, were like breadcrumbs leading him deeper into the heart of the woods, a trail of hope amidst the encroaching dread of the unknown. It was close to October, and the forest floor was a tapestry of green, interwoven with splashes of brown from the early fallen leaves. The beauty of the changing seasons, usually a spectacle of nature's artistry, now served as the backdrop for a father's nightmare. Daniel followed the footprints with single-minded focus, each step a silent prayer for his son's safety. After what felt like an eternity, but was only about 10 minutes, the trail led to a small clearing where the narrative took a sinister turn. The footprints showed signs of a scuffle, the ground disturbed, leaves scattered as if in the throes of a struggle. Amongst the chaos of Lucas's smaller prints were others, larger and deeper, hinting at the presence of another, an unwanted intruder into their story. Daniel's heart seized, his worst fears materializing before his eyes. The possibility that his son had not just wandered off, but had been taken, kidnapped by someone with intentions unknown, sent waves of panic crashing over him. He reached for his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed 911, the urgency of the situation lending his voice a tremulous strength. "My son, he's gone missing. We were in the forest, and I found signs of a struggle. There are footprints, his and someone else's. It might be a kidnapping. Please, you have to help me find him." Daniel's plea, a mixture of despair and determination, echoed through the trees, a call for help that shattered the silence of the forest. With the call made, hope and dread wove together in a tight knot in his chest as he awaited the arrival of help. Yet, unable to remain idle, driven by a father's need to protect his child at all costs, Daniel turned his attention back to the only lead he had, the larger footprints. They meandered through the underbrush, a path that seemed both random and purposeful, until they merged with the impressions of tires on the soft earth, the marks of a vehicle's passage cutting through the natural landscape. The tire tracks, fresh and ominous, led away from the clearing, disappearing into the forest's depths where the undergrowth began to thin. Daniel followed, his mind racing with scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. The forest around him felt alive, aware, its secrets cloaked in shadows and whispers that seemed to mock his efforts. As he traced the path of the truck marks, the reality of the situation settled upon him with a weight heavier than the densest fog. His son, Lucas, was out there, somewhere beyond his reach, taken by forces unknown, and all Daniel could do was follow the fading traces left behind, clinging to the fading hope that they would lead him back to his boy. The waiting for help to arrive, the tracking of the footmarks, and the eventual discovery of the tire tracks. Each step was a descent into despair for Daniel. Yet, amidst the fear and uncertainty, a resolve hardened within him. He would not cease, could not rest, until he had unraveled the mystery of the forest and reclaimed his son from whatever fate had befallen him in the whispering woods. As the dense foliage of the forest whispered secrets only it could comprehend, the arrival of the police officers broke the eerie silence that had enveloped Daniel in his solitary quest. Emerging from the trees, guided by the GPS signal from Daniel's phone, were two figures in uniform, a male and a female officer, their expressions a mix of concern and determination. The forest, too thick for their vehicles, had compelled them to proceed on foot, a testament to the urgency of the situation. Daniel, standing amidst the scattered leaves and disrupted earth that marked the site of the struggle, looked up to see them approach. Relief and despair clashed within him, the sight of help a balm to his frayed nerves, yet a stark reminder of the grim reality of Lucas's disappearance. He was sobbing, each tear a symbol of the guilt that gnawed at him, blaming himself for the turn of events that had led to this moment. "Sir, we're here to help," the female officer said, her voice steady yet imbued with empathy. "Can you show us exactly what you found?" Daniel nodded. His voice caught in his throat as he gestured towards the chaos on the ground, the intertwining footprints of Lucas and the unknown larger ones. "Here," he managed to choke out, "this is where I lost him. And those," he pointed towards the larger prints, "they belong to whoever took him." The officers followed his gaze, their training kicking in as they surveyed the scene. The male officer knelt, examining the footprints and the signs of struggle with a critical eye. "We'll need to secure this area, collect any evidence. Can you lead us to where the trail ends?" he asked, already radioing the additional units that had arrived at the scene. As they followed Daniel to where the tire tracks began, a silence fell over the group, each step heavy with the gravity of the situation. The distance, approximately 250 meters from the struggle to where the truck had been, felt longer, each meter a story of what might have occurred in those lost moments. Upon reaching the tire tracks, the officers took note, their expertise guiding their observations. The realization that the tracks faded onto an asphalted road, a road that shockingly ran close to their home, was a pivotal moment. The implication that the truck could have passed right in front of Daniel's house added a layer of horror to the ordeal. "It seems the vehicle made its way to the main road," the male officer stated, the wheels in his mind turning as he considered the possibilities. "This proximity to your home, It's possible they drove right past. Daniel's heart sank further. The thought of such evil lurking so close to where they lived, where Lucas had felt safe, was a bitter pill to swallow. The female officer placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We're going to do everything in our power to find your son," she assured him, her gaze firm yet compassionate. "We have units canvassing the area, checking surveillance, talking to potential witnesses. We're on it, every step of the way." As the scene was secured and evidence collected, the presence of the police brought a semblance of order to the chaos that had unfolded. Yet, for Daniel, the journey had just begun, a relentless pursuit of answers, driven by the love for his son and the determination to bring him home. The forest, with its hidden depths and secrets, had become the backdrop for a nightmare. But amidst the despair, the glimmer of hope, fueled by the efforts of those sworn to protect and serve, flickered stubbornly in the darkness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fading orange and deepening blue, the search for Lucas intensified with a palpable sense of urgency. The forest, once a place of adventure and wonder for the boy, now stood as a vast, inscrutable barrier between him and his desperate parents. Anna, having joined the search as soon as she could, was a picture of despair. Her arrival at the scene, her eyes scanning the dense woods and the faces of the officers for any sign of hope, was marked by a silent prayer for her son's safety. Upon seeing Daniel, the floodgates of her emotions burst open. Heartbroken, she initially directed her fear and frustration towards him, her voice trembling with accusation. "How could you let this happen? Why weren't you watching him?" The words, though harsh, were the manifestation of her own helplessness and fear, a mother's despair at being unable to protect her child. But as the initial shock and anger faded, replaced by a crushing realization of their situation, Anna's stance softened. She turned the blame upon herself, her voice breaking as she lamented, "It should have been me there. I should have been with you too." The cycle of guilt and self-blame enveloped both Daniel and Anna, each grappling with their own torment while trying to support the other. As night settled in, cloaking the forest and their efforts in darkness, the officers advised them to return home, promising to continue the search and keep them informed. The drive back was a journey of silence, a heavy air of unspoken fears and shared sorrow between them. Their home, once a beacon of warmth and family joy, now felt hollow, each room echoing with the absence of Lucas's laughter and energy. Attempting to find solace in the familiarity of their surroundings proved futile. Daniel and Anna, entwined in their grief, found sleep elusive. The bed they shared, once a haven of rest and intimacy, now felt vast and cold. They lay side by side, yet miles apart in their anguish, the silence between them punctuated by the soft sounds of sorrowful weeping. The conversation they attempted was a series of whispered apologies and comforting lies, each trying to buoy the other's spirits while barely keeping afloat themselves. "We'll find him," Daniel murmured, the words tasting of both promise and desperation. Anna nodded, her response a whisper lost in the space between them. "We have to." The night stretched on, each minute an eternity of what-ifs and memories of Lucas. They clung to each other, not in search of passion, but seeking the solace of shared pain, a desperate attempt to anchor themselves in the storm that had engulfed their lives. The darkness of the night mirrored the darkness that had settled in their hearts, a profound sadness that seemed to consume all light, all hope. Yet beneath the layers of grief and guilt, a fierce determination simmered. For Daniel and Anna, the unbearable notion of a life without Lucas was the fuel that fed their resolve. No matter the depths of despair, the love for their son was a beacon that would guide them through the darkest of times, a vow to fight, to search, to never give up until they brought their boy back home. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the suburban landscape, Daniel was already on his feet, driven by a restless energy fueled by desperation and hope. The night had been long and sleepless, each passing hour a reminder of Lucas's absence. The silence of the house, a stark contrast to the usual morning bustle of family life. Determined to utilize every moment, Daniel had prepared dozens of photographs of Lucas, each one a snapshot of happier times. Armed with these images and posters, he set out to canvass the neighborhood, a place once familiar and comforting, now the backdrop to his worst nightmare. The neighborhood, with its neatly lined houses and well-kept gardens, was slowly waking to the new day. Daniel moved with purpose, affixing posters to lampposts, community bulletin boards, and at every street corner. The images of Lucas's smiling face, juxtaposed against the somber reality of his disappearance, seemed to watch over the neighborhood, a silent plea for help. Knocking on every door, Daniel's presence was an early morning wake-up call to the residents. Apologies for the disturbance fell from his lips, but his eyes, haunted and pleading, asked the question his heart feared to know the answer to. Had anyone seen a suspicious truck? Had anyone noticed anything out of the ordinary? His inquiries were met with a mix of concern, sympathy, and unfortunately, no information that could lead him closer to Lucas. As the morning wore on, transforming into the heat of noon, the initial surge of energy that had propelled Daniel began to wane, his steps growing heavier with the weight of uncertainty. It was then, amidst the blur of faces and houses, that his phone rang, cutting through the haze of his fatigue. Glancing at the screen, Daniel saw an unknown number, but answered instinctively, his heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Hello? The voice on the other end was calm, professional, yet carried an undercurrent of gravity that immediately drew Daniel's full attention. Hello, I'm Detective Harding, sir. We have news about your kid, Lucas. Sir, do you hear me? Daniel's breath hitched in his throat, the world around him narrowing to the voice on the phone. Every fiber of his being was poised on the brink of what could be the most pivotal moment since Lucas's disappearance. The anticipation, a tangled knot of fear and hope, held him in its grip as he braced for the words that would follow. As we drive towards the end of this episode, I hope you liked it, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the story and wish for part 2. Let's keep this adventure rolling. Till next time, stay awesome.